Through the strait!
There's more.
We're screwed! Very bad.
Fluids and brine.
Destroy the enemy trebuchet! through the strait! These are destroying the trebuchets! Destroy the
Wriggly and slippery. Like his mom.
We're screwed! Very bad. Bring the enemy trebuchets down!
Welcome to our Sunday channel. Give me one sec. I should be able to. There we go. That's a little bit better. Anyways, welcome to our Sunday channel. This is.
Hey guys.
There we go. This is Fishers of Men Digging for the Truth. That was actually something my wife came up with. And today what we're going to be talking about in our philosophy, Christ, and a bunch of long jargon stuff that humans get into that we really never do too much with. We use it to reason, and it's how we view the world around us, and that's super important. We don't really actually think about that as much as we do today. Mainly because we think science has got everything down, which is somewhat true, but not totally true, because the way it's looked at is science, even though it doesn't understand everything, will understand everything. But then, of course, we're suggesting that we as humans, this is really what it is, because science is just a way of deducing and going through and looking at something rationally and logically, testing it, and getting the same result so that you can always know what the answer is, right? It's just knowing what the answer is. It'd be like no different than memorizing the questions on a test and then being able to take that test and succeed every time. So that in that kind of thought is a bit ridiculous to believe that we're going to understand everything or explain everything, but that doesn't mean we should throw that sort of logical style out at all, because once we do, just trust me, don't do that. It goes so wrong so fast. Anyways, so we're going to do some fishing. We're going to talk about Christmas and things like that, and really the heart of it, not the presents, not all that crap, you know. I want to talk about the mushy, real stuff, what matters, why it matters, because we need that more than ever these days. If we look at just how the world is, I mean, it's always been going downhill, but the real question is as we're going downhill, are we meeting one of those bumps, one of those times in history where some historian is going to be writing down about this era because it built up to a consequence? Is that not right? Is that not what usually happens, right? I mean, a bunch of people died because this happened beforehand, and that's what we learned as humans. That's the heart of it. And that's why it's not just, I mean, obviously as a Christian, I have other reasons for why I think Christmas is here and why Christ came in that story. You don't have to believe it, but I would ask you to, respect it. I'll respect yours. I've never had a problem with somebody disagreeing with me. And I think that's really the heart of what's supposed to be America. Anyways, let's get going and let's do some fishing. See what we got ahead in front of us. And we'll get on to, I'll tell a little bit of story about me, just kind of about my background, who I am, and why I do what I do, and that kind of silly stuff. And because I think it ties into Christmas. I really do. It sounds crazy, but I think it does. All right. So, let's see here. I think that is a storm over there. So, in this game, storms are always going to have, when you're looking for storm fishing, what you're looking for is lightning coming down, not lightning flashing in the sky. They're actually, sometimes they have like, right there, you see that? They have like a fake storm where it's just a big cloud and it's not actually a storm. You're looking for the sheets of rain. That if you're from like the right there, you see that? There it is. That looks like a storm. Oh my God, is that two storms? When did they start doing that? So one of those isn't actually a storm, and the other one is. I don't think it's that one because I don't see the sheets of rain. All I see is just that's Sanctuary, so that's north. I'll bet you that's the one right there, because I can hardly see around it, you know what I mean? Fogs it out like an actual rainstorm. And that one I think is just for show. That's the one that knows brewing.
We got a level 4 Reaper on.
Okay, I mean we don't. What's the worst? I guess is steal our fish. We don't. I mean we don't have an emissary. We don't have one. Do we have one on?
I can take it down.
We do have one. That's okay. Whatever. I mean if he comes after us, that's cool. You gotta defend your boat. Anyways, so I'm actually trying to complete some of the fishing stuff around here. It's not actually. Is this the one that glows in the dark? It does. Cool. So that one's actually super useful for fishing in storms and stuff. You'll actually see where you're going. Be like having a flashlight while you're calling in a crawl space. You know, super useful. Anywho. So just a little about me. I'm a carpenter, a concrete carpenter, and I've done that for like 10 years. I'm trying to get out and do something different. It's because my back is, it's done. It's destroyed. I literally stand up. Yesterday I was singing in church, right, and I was standing up. My whole right leg fell asleep. I have sciatica, pretty bad. I'm getting to my 40s where I was told it was going to just give out on me. And it would just be done. Not that I would end up in a wheelchair, but I don't really want to take chances. Life tends to throw you curveballs, and I'm not a big fan of them. You know what I mean? And I probably could say something about that. So I'm trying to go to school now. I wasn't able to do that younger. I wish I could say that has to do with just not paying attention. I wish. And I understand that happens to some people, but I honestly think, at least in my experience of getting to know people, it hardly ever is because someone just didn't care enough in school. Usually there's a reason why they care about something else way more than school like that. Usually they got something going on at home, they've got a sickness, they've got something like that. So I have what's called bipolar type 1. And I know if you're out there right now, you're thinking, oh my gosh, bipolar, that's, that means you're an emotional wreck all the time, doesn't it? Well, no, actually, it doesn't always mean that. We got to understand one of the first things about mental illness is that they're trying to categorize something, and it's a fairly new science. So we're trying to categorize something that you can't see. We're not allowed to crack open people's brains and, squirm around in there until we can figure out what the real differences are. So it's kind of like the phylums you might have learned in school with, the fish that sprang all the other fish to be, or the dog that started all the dogs. We're guessing and trying to create what we think it is so that we can deal with it easier. Really, that's what we do with science. So I've got what's called bipolar type 1. Anyways, what that really just means is when I didn't take my meds and I was in high school, I was an emotional wreck for sure. But being a teenager, obviously, that's a little. I would say that was at one point hard to detect. I'm allergic to amphetamine, so what they gave me for my ADD type 7, which I'll explain a little bit later. What that means is I'm allergic to my own adrenaline. And so what happened is my brain just went faster and faster until it broke. That's really, to make it really simple. Which is not good, obviously. So I'm part of what they call 1%ers. I came back from actually going completely insane, if I remember one Christmas, I was eating, I kind of remember a little bit. So it's really hard to explain. Like when your brain starts to come up with ways to protect itself, it has to grab onto what it thinks is reality. Your brain can't function without beliefs and rules around it for reality. And that's usually where most of us have our issues, right? Because we've crafted these very carefully, these beliefs, realities, but we do it for generations. I mean, like my family, last name is Findlay. It goes back to the name Fionlach. That's how you would say it in old Scots Gaelic, right? Basically, the Irish who went to Scotland. And one of our newer sayings is fortis and artis, and that's Latin, of course. That means fortitude in adversity, or just I'm a tough guy. They kind of being tough when it's really hard to be tough. That's the idea. So, anyways, we've crafted that. My family, at some point, there's a story that goes behind that, and we've crafted the idea that we believe that is an essential to living, that what kept us alive in this crazy world. That's definitely a crazy world. Holy crap. Oh, it looks like I made the wrong mistake. No. How far are we down? I'm starting to think I gypped this one. No, we're good. That's definitely the storm, I think. You can always tell. So, like I said, I was telling before. See how it's kind of like if you look over here, it's a little clearer. It actually, if you're how do I say this? If you're from Washington, it's a lot harder to tell. If you're from a place that rains a lot, it's harder to tell. This is something that you're gonna see in like desert areas where the rain comes down on two sides of the storm and it's blurry in the middle because of the rain, right? So that's what you're looking for. If you've never experienced that, you need to go to West Texas just at least one time, or Albuquerque, New Mexico, and watch the rain come in sheets. It's absolutely stupidly insane. It really, you sit there and go, wow, this world is a complicated place. How amazing is that? It's absolutely amazing. And here's the funny part. We've been studying rain, if you think about it, and this is just kind of a side note, what I like to call a rabbit trail. We've been studying rain since the beginning of time. Since some dude's head got wet, and he's like, that is not happening again. No, you can't, no, right? So he gets some sort of finagled idea of, there's got to be a way to tell when this is coming, because it's not happening again. That's really why we come up with ways of thinking like that, right? And we've had logical styles of thinking that we now call the scientific method for just eons upon eons, thousands of years, guys. It pretty much goes back to what we know as history. And even in mythology, we can see some of the fabled stories of these wise men use a similar style of thinking. So what we think is, science, because science says so. Just be careful of that. It doesn't always, science is... We got to remember that when we're saying that, what we're saying is because the scientist who knows what he's talking about said so. That's a good thing. It doesn't mean we shouldn't look at it and also decide for ourselves. That's also part of the scientific method. We're not all scientists, but it's not a bad thing to understand what someone is talking about. That helps you trust them, right? That's the idea. Anyways, back to what I was saying. And I think this looks pretty good. For this, we're going in. So I'm going to go get the leeches. So this is my favorite kind of fishing, mainly because I like to kick things up a notch here in Clan Mac, which means children of the wild. Because I honestly think we're all kind of children of the wild and out here in this crazy planet of ours. There we go. Grasping at straws, Hopefully everything works out. So, anyway, so where did I leave off with this 1%ers? So my story. So I know what it's like. I ran away when I was 16. Didn't like. Obviously, you're gonna make some bad decisions if you're insane, right? Yeah, because the logical part's gone. There's some bad stuff at home that happened. It wasn't horrible, crazy. My parents weren't the worst people in the world or anything like that. But my family's always had a bit of a temper. That's a bit of our own family problems. But aside from that. I know what it's like to be hungry and homeless. The problem with when you're insane as you're homeless is your ability to get out of that is pretty much zip. I'm super lucky. My brother right now is actually in that exact same or similar predicament. It's just a bad shot. And of course, being a Christian, I pray that he comes home. And I also know that there are people out there who are homeless, and I hate to say it, but it's a bit of their choice. Like, them getting back out of it is near impossible. It's super hard to actually not be homeless once you've become homeless. You have to have a place for mail to be sent to, right? To get a job, you have to have a social security card, an ID card. You have to have all this paperwork to be able to even make money, which is kind of what you need to not be homeless, right? So we don't do the old kind of Jewish style of every family, Scotland, everybody. A long time ago, most of us used to have, like, each family had a chunk of land that was theirs. And most cultures did that. And it's actually not a bad idea because it's hard to be homeless if you always have a place to live. It is your requirement to make sure that you maintain that place and stuff. But at least you have a place. That doesn't. Right now, where I live, we have a city that's just gone absolutely insane. And I love that city, and other people do too. I mean, it was actually, we used to call it the Emerald City. It's Seattle. That's what I'm talking about. I'm up in the Northwest, and that was a great city of grand ideas. And I can't actually say it's that anymore. I think they went, at least in my opinion, a little bit too far and made it so that churches and not just churches, but mosques and other things couldn't put out Christmas decorations. They couldn't put out Hanukkah decorations. That was illegal. You know, I don't even know how that was. They're trying to do an ordinance like that. That's obviously is illegal, but I'm just like, dude, wasn't the whole point of America a place where we could all disagree but work together? Shouldn't that be a good thing? Not, you had better fall in line or you're gonna have no place to live. You had better fall in line. And that we have old songs about that, you know. Miss Mary, quite contrary, how does your garden grow? With silver bells and cockle shells and pretty maids all in a row. So, if you don't know what that is, there's two people who that could be about. And either way, both of these stories have a bit to do with about religious, and it's Christian religious, obviously, but we can find these stories in other religions. It's not just Christianity. Who's had a problem with how we view each other's things? We obviously don't kill each other now, but at one point we did. Pretty maids all in a row, some people think could have been Mary, not Queen of Scots, but Bloody Mary. There was a pre... Oh no. There was a pre... Where's that hole? There was a pre... There was a device to cut people's heads off before the old French guillotine. So, and it was called a maid. And so pretty maids all in a row. And that's a reference to the slaughter of Protestants. And don't get me wrong, Ireland's got great stories of exactly the reverse. So that's, my point is shouldn't Christmas time be a reminder? And it is a reminder of exactly doing the opposite, right? Of treating each other with, we need a reminder as humans. We absolutely are just so horrible to each other that I think we need a reminder. And it's weird these days. It feels sometimes like we've gotten to this weird idea of well, if I can't be accepted, then I'm just gonna do the opposite. I'm gonna be the bad guy, you know? Where we think tough is talking tough and not as much as being tough, you know? Ooh, nice, trophy into swordfish. I'll tell you what tough is. Tough is going up into a park after you're absolutely dirty. You woke up from your bed of needles that you dug the night before. You've gotten a couple of hours of sleep because it was so cold while you were sleeping underneath a pine tree that you could hardly get to break. And it doesn't help at all that you're also insane, right? That's tough, that your mind's racing. All kinds of weird thoughts go through your head. I mean, it's broken, right? The thing that does the thoughts is broken. It's gonna get all weird. And then you're watching this teacher throw away sandwiches that aren't finished in a park. I'm telling you right now, I've never had my mouth water so much that day as I stood in the trees, because, you know, I have this, you get this idea when you go insane or you're bipolar, people start looking at you like that way, that you're the problem, you're the bad guy, you're the monster, because all your reactions are either going to be overdone or they just, ooh, there's an ancient swordfish again, look at that. Super lucky. You're not going to be able to help but blame yourself at some point with that. Even in blaming others, you will get to a point where you're going to blame yourself. And if you're that person right now, don't give up. You can do something more than that. Like, it's hard to find right medication. That journey back to any kind of sanity that most people take for granted, it'd be like, it is in some ways trying to like explain to somebody what's it like to be blind, you know? I guess you could ask the person, like, have you ever eaten pine needles because you thought the Christmas tree was made out of candy canes? They'd be like, no, why would I do that? That's crazy. Ha ha! Now we're getting somewhere. So, I remember, I'm sure she saw me. I thought I was, slick, but obviously it wasn't as slick. But I would just remember being absolutely starving. And there's a point when you're so hungry that you actually stop being hungry. Your stomach actually starts to eat itself, so you're not hungry. That's what's happening. You've gone through your fat, and you're still hungry at that point because your fat starts to scream. It wants to make more, to sell, it wants to divide. And you just, absolutely, it hurts, and it's weird, but you're not hungry anymore. And it's odd to think, like, thank goodness I'm not hungry anymore. But that is a real thing. And I remember going up to this dumpster, and I watched, as I was kind of coming up, I watched her, because I'm waiting for her to go away, and I'm trying to get there as quick as I can, because I'm starving. And I remember going up there, and I swear I seen her saw me through the side of her eye, as she put in, like, a whole sandwich. What I thought was her food, like a whole sandwich. I was so thankful that somebody... She didn't say anything, but I was just so thankful that somebody actually was thinking that she had enough sense to think, like, man, I wonder, he looks like he's starving. I don't think this is just a regular kid, People, if you're smart enough, when you start to pick up on other people and what they're not saying, Most of our actual language isn't actually verbal. Our communication problems tend to be with our verbal part, not with... all the other things that can tell you, about a person, Sherlock Holmes style, that deductive reasoning. I can see his holy jeans and old sneakers and scraggly hair, and he looks like pine needles all over him, and he's probably homeless or in trouble, right? So she must have picked up on something like that. I remember eating later that day, too, old, nasty... rotten bread. It's so disgusting. Mold's got a funny taste to it. It kind of goes in your mouth. It's almost like a dust. Worse, it feels like dirt, but doesn't taste like dirt. Mold tastes like it. It's got its own distinctive, don't put it in your mouth. But, when you're starving, there's a bit of you stop caring about how you look. Very humbling in a weird way. But my point is, of this long drawn-out story, that what that lady did was Christmas. That's what it's supposed to be about, right? That's the idea of what Christ came down to give us. My wife said something very interesting the other day. I know a lot of people, why would God send a person to hell? And I would totally agree with them, actually. If you listen to... people who don't believe in God or don't know about Christianity, or honestly most religions, because are some similarities, not the same, but there are similarities. You're gonna find that the description of this God that we say we believe in doesn't quite fit the one we believe. It almost sounds like a 12-year-old cosmic child. Like, I think Star Trek has like the perfect rendition of this ultimate alien interdimensional being called Q, who acts like a 12-year-old little boy. He's created stuff, and you don't do what he says, you're going to get in trouble. And Star Trek, the original series, had somebody like that, who actually was like a little kid. And so there is kind of a, if you don't go to hell, I'm going to banish you. You're going to be punished forever. The Bible does say hell's a punishment, but it's not in the way we're thinking. The punishment is because you're away from the one thing that actually does make you happy. The one thing that actually is going to bring you satisfaction. God is supposed to be that harder, or when you feel happy at Christmas, that's what he's supposed to give you. That's the idea that Christians have. That's what we are trying to explain, is that the thing that really does make you happy when you're actually happy with people, it comes from him. That's what we're all trying to work towards. It's that the American dream is supposed to be that, working together, not killing each other over stupid beliefs or saying you can't believe that or you can't, that's absolutely ridiculous. There's plenty of people who have their history of fleeing crazy psychotic ideas like that to come to this country, and people still do it today, and we argue over like how we should do it and stuff, and I think that's okay. we also have to remember that as an Americans, we're supposed to be binding together more than ever. You know, we're supposed to be moving forward in tolerance. You could say, how could truth ever win out if there's nowhere to share the truth? How can truth win if there's no place to be able to present it and look through the different ideas to see which one's the correct one, right? Truth stands out. That's the nature of it, then, right? I mean, if I could tell you 3 different stories, and if there's actually supposed to be one that's correct, then, you know, there's a bit of an issue, right? Because there's only going to be one correct. But you're not going to care what I have to say if I'm a jerk about it. And why would you? I wouldn't. You know, if it was, vice versa, like, why would anybody care? That's common sense. You know, and I hate to say it, but I think COVID really kind of showed us a bit of that. When 9/11 happened, when I was a young kid, I was actually sleeping on a couch at a friend's house. You know, about the time I was having some issues. I didn't realize I was a teenager, and I had no clue how expensive medication really was. I do now, which I think, just my opinion, but I think it's a bit sick because there are people like me who you wouldn't even know I had issues, that I could go completely bonkers, you know, that I could become my own worst enemy, that I could do things that I wouldn't normally do, like I could freak out or act more like more animalistic. It's kind of weird in that way, but it's more of a fight or flight scenario. I can't control the emotions that help you figure things out in the world, right? There's a bit of emotional logic to things. Actually, one of my favorite movies talks about that. It's not a Christian movie. It's The Matrix. The Matrix has a beautiful explanation of the architect, and that's your logical science part of your brain. And then the prophecy lady, and she's the one who does emotional logic. There's your reasoning that we do with our emotions too. It's what allows us to appreciate art and other things that really can't be defined by science. It's not like we can say, like, we like art that is, you know, we like things that are very symmetrical. That's true, but we also like Picasso and Van Gogh. Van Gogh does a bit he kind of plays with that, with color. I mean, of course, both of those guys had some mental issues too, but in an odd way, isn't that a beautiful thing that they had those? Because they would never have painted those that way. So we need the diversity of differences. We need, if you don't like Christians, I'm just asking you to at least give. We're not all bad. I swear to you, we're not. You know, if Muslims aren't all bad, then Christians can't all be bad. Christians and Muslims are actually starting to get along, believe it or not. I was reading some interesting papers of people reaching out to try to settle our differences, supposedly, and the idea is that we worship the same God. Now, it's okay to not totally agree with that, but here's my point. It was a good place to start when I got into a taxi once, when I was going from one hospital to the other. It's one of the few times I wasn't strapped down to a bed with a thing on my face. That's a real thing. They do that, especially when you're going to like a public institution, mental institution. The one I used to go to is closed down now. Was not humane. There's way too many. You'd be surprised how people will treat some people with animals, even if it's not your fault. You're insane. It's not your fault, but people can do some pretty mean things when they're afraid. I think we all got to see that on a very large scale in COVID, didn't we? We gotta be careful on how we act, man. We gotta. It's almost like picking a Christmas present. It's almost like when you want to let someone you care, you have to show it by the thought of the present, not necessarily the money spent. My mother-in-law gave me a wonderful gift, and she has a hard time with that. That's just one of her things, and that's okay. No. Dang you. and she doesn't know. You're right. I've only been married to my wife for like 6 years, so we're still getting to know each other. And her husband just died. God rest her soul. And obviously, the guys are going to get a little bit more along in that way. But my point is, she gave me this wonderful gift as I'm trying to switch to being a house inspector to make some more money and do a little Twitch streaming and YouTube. And if you guys like it, check out our other stuff. We have Pure Adventures. I like to do Pure Adventures. I like to kick things up a notch and punch monsters in the face and have competitive combat. That's always fun. But I think it's also important to have serious talks like this, like the idea of Christmas. Like, I know a lot of people have a hard time these days with that, man. And I think that really shows that our culture, as America as a whole, we're not tolerant. Like, we weren't really tolerant before, but we're getting farther away from where we wanted to be. Like, it's, in Seattle, they pulled a bunch of people in to talk about, well, you could say, and I'm not going to get too detailed into it, but they pulled people in one of our bus communities to talk about kind of a racist stereotype of a certain type of people that they wanted to talk about, essentially like anger that they all had because of their skin color. And it was just like, oh my gosh, it was national news. It actually made me, as a white guy, and that's who they were talking about, felt pretty good, because I'm like, hey, heck yeah, it's not just going downhill. And it's, I can understand why racism would be a sensitive issue, right? In America, we've not all of us, but there's people who've done bad, and and there's still people who do bad. There's people who don't take it seriously. I think that's the biggest problem right now. But I don't think it's to be solved by whitewashing and generalizing people. That's the opposite of the idea of Christmas. That would be like, that's like white elephant gifts. That's a hard one to do because nobody really likes it. You've taken away the sole thing. Like, you could say the idea of what Christ, when he came down as a baby to die, his gift to everybody was himself, his ability to say that I don't want to separate you from me. That's what we call hell. That's what hell's supposed to be. That's what James tells us in the Bible, as the guy who, got to know some of the people who actually knew Christ. So apart from that, what I'm saying is the idea that's supposed to be there isn't a 12-year-old spoiled brat who's, do what I say, but he's a guy who's willing to come down and do whatever it takes to want to get to know you. Whatever it takes to give you the best Christmas present that you could ever have. He wants to, create an entire universe for you, If you remember as a kid what it was like to open that amazing gift, if you ever got one that was just absolutely spectacular, or if you never got one like that, do you know what it was like to wait for one, hoping? I think everybody has, almost everybody. He wants to be the dude to give that idea. That's what Christians believe in. That's what we're supposed to believe in. We're not supposed to believe in this God who is always going to be there to punish. He is a father. He is a parent. There's a part, the Holy Spirit is like a mother. So there is, for sure, like you reap what you sow. That's an idea throughout the Bible, right? That when you do something bad, it does eventually come back to you. Like, the East Indians have the idea of karma, right? Or what comes around goes around. So this is a fundamental idea that's not just Christian. This is an idea that we can find anywhere in the world, any culture, any religion, right? So we could say that if you want to take a third-party view, that it's not just we as humans don't want bad to just keep going. But we as humans have to decide to want to be the person who's also willing, and this is what Christians are supposed to do, because we're supposed to be Christ for other people, right? That's what we're told to do, actually. Not only tell people about him, but act like him. We're supposed to act like him. And I hate to say it, but I think people who aren't Christian have a bit of a right to hold us to that. And I think they should. I think we should be held to that a little bit. One, because it gives you a perfect opening to be like, well, how do you know that the curse word's bad? I thought you weren't a Christian, right? And then you can talk about him, and, if you're going to point us out like that, can you give us 2 minutes? Right? I mean, I get it. we shouldn't go around, it's judging people as what the idea of judgment is that you're sitting on that big judge seat with your hammer and you're like, bad person, Not that we shouldn't observe and make, logical ideas. We're supposed to do that. We're told to be careful how you judge, and I think that's another idea that isn't just from. I might have my belief that these all come from this God guy, and that all these good ideas have a source in him. But my point is still, even if you don't agree with that, we can at least agree outside of that quickly judging people is a bad idea, right? First impressions are important, but that we probably shouldn't hang on to those. People have bad days. Everybody wants to have a chance, and everybody wants to love someone and be loved in return. That's the idea, right? That was actually why Christ came down. That's the present. That's what he wants to give everybody. It's more than just a sandwich when you're literally starving and you're completely insane. And you're literally waking up from one place to another. And when I mean waking up, I mean like I was insane and I was in Seattle and I remember passing out in a ditch. Literally, I had water running in my face because they pumped me full of horse tranquilizers. And I left the hospital because I didn't want to go through that again. It felt way... I'm going to tell you, when you have one bad experience or more, it can ruin your whole experience with doctors. And the or more part is horrible, man. I'm really surprised that we still treat people pretty bad sometimes. But then again, I also have a responsibility to not assume that everybody's going to do that either. And I'm glad I figured that out, because I wouldn't be here today. I'd be dead in a ditch a long time ago at like 17 years old, 16. I'm 38 now, so I'll be 40 here soon. I got a couple of kids of my own. I go to a doctor who tells me, you know how lucky you are you made it. You know how lucky you are? Literally every time I see this guy to get my meds, I pay expensive prices because some rich guy believes that I should have to pay for my happiness that has been given to me or supposedly required in the Constitution, right? I, as a person, and people who have diabetes can say the same thing. We don't get to just pursue happiness. We have to pay for something that lets us do that, right? That's not freedom. Medication obviously isn't free, but it doesn't always have to be as expensive as they make it. There is a problem with greed. There's not a problem with corporations or businesses. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been doing that thing forever. There's actually old, cool Roman different signs and stuff painted they found. It's just, I love history, and it's really cool to see sometimes that even in Rome, they had like slogans and gimmicks and essentially commercials that are like billboards. Before TV commercials, you had billboards, and people would pay in old Greece and stuff to have people to, give you a little bit of a scene to be able to sell stuff. Marketing and trying to make money has always been around. We've always wanted to share because I like something you have, and I want to be able to give that to you, My favorite thing to give, and why I actually started, it's probably coming to an end, which is like a little sad. I mean, not totally to an end, but I'm not probably going to be doing What a Tale Wednesdays, Bloodthirsty Thursdays, or any of those as much, guys. I got to get back to work here. My wife was lucky enough to let me give this a go. I wanted to help people believe in themselves, because I figured, if people could invest into me for being severely dyslexic. I spent all of first grade crying in a closet because I thought there was something wrong with me because I couldn't read the words, and so I wasn't allowed to sit down. I didn't know that they were going to send me to another school so I could relearn to read, but that's not something that's easy to explain to a kid either. Right? So as everybody's having snack time, I'm trying to pretend and ignore the fact that I can't figure something out that these other kids could. That scars a kid. You start to think you're stupid. People tell you you're not, but you know what? It's hard to... Just telling someone they're not doesn't show them they're not. A wonderful lady named Margaret Haskins, who started a place called the Life Program, is the one who showed me that I wasn't. And that's what I like to do. Oh, I'm tried to do it for Myr in our Elder Scrolls Online. If you guys like to do complicated dungeon trial cool stuff, go check out Myr on our Elder Scrolls under Clan Mac tier. He runs some of the most complicated stuff. If you need help building, he knows. The guy can memorize everything, and he knows how it all works together on such a finite scale that it's absolutely insane that he would ever think bad about himself. I mean, he makes mistakes, we all do, but something I learned through life of, I think I've said I had ADD type 7, I've said that. So what that is my brain doesn't have the ability to shut information out. I can't ignore things. It's always taking everything in and processing every detail. It's very similar, and it actually might be. They're starting to want to recategorize, if you guys remember me talking about that. Recategorize that into the scale of autism. So I would be closer to that style of brain, right? God's got all. It is God. Just trust me. I've spent hours of my life absolutely as a Christian, right? How could you not question things of like, why would God make a crazy person? If he doesn't make mistakes, what am I? How does this fit? Right? You know what I found out? Sometimes just sharing somebody's story of don't give up, don't kill yourself, don't end it. I've been there many a times. I've failed at it. And it's worse if you fail. Trust me, it can get a whole lot worse. I've had friends. I've actually have 3 friends who are dead right now. I'll never get to see them again unless this Christian thing's true, right? Or somebody else's religion, that we're not just crazy, weird apes with some sort of mutant mythology that only happens only so many years because we don't have as much evidence as we thought we would. But the idea is that you never know how life is going to end up. You don't know. You don't. I didn't know. I'm not homeless anymore. There was one single medication after all the. I've taken most of the old ones. I was the guinea pig for a lot of them. You never know. You don't know. You have no clue. It can end up being amazing. I'm just a carpenter, but I mean, I like to stream. I like to make people believe in themselves. I guess I'll end it, and with that's what Christmas is about. And this will just be a short stream today, guys, but that's the idea. That's what we gotta remember, is Christmas is about treating other people as we see them, as the good part, helping them develop and become more of that good part. That's what Christians are supposed to be about, is that showing them what Christ also sees in them, that we do too, that somebody cares. That you're not just a nobody. You're something special too. We need that in America right now because we are tearing each other apart. We have less patience, we have less love. That's why it's not the guns are as much of the problem, man. Yeah, we'll probably have less deaths, but there'll be more horrific, the ones that do happen. If you don't believe me, look up some of the crazy murders in Britain. I love Britain, I love Scotland, I want to go there, I'd love to live there. But the truth is, the problem we have is us. And I'm going to tell you guys, we can choose not to be the monsters. We can choose to be the good people in the story. There's all kinds of heroes that we can choose to be, but we have to choose to do that. I personally believe you got to have Christ to really achieve it, but you have to at least want to look for the truth. You want to have to look for that philosophical thing and believe that we all want to be loved, and we all want to love someone. That's what Christmas is, guys. That's what I got to learn today. I got to see my wife do that. To remember that taking the high road, guys, is a long-term plan. It's not a short-term one. Anyways, Merry Christmas, and I hope you guys have a wonderful New Year. And I'll still be around. We'll still be doing stuff on Fridays and Saturdays. And if you have any questions or ever need help, even just anything, just let me know, man. I'm always there. That's my thing. Children of the Wild, man. Clan MacTier. The wolves, you know, running together like a family, working together. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace be with you, man, and goodwill to all men. That's what we really want, right? Night. Slán, till next time.